All right, welcome to Saturday Night Protection Live, hosted by Protect Your Children Incorporated. I'm your host, Christopher Gelson, Executive Director and Lead Teacher of Protect Your Children Incorporated, and we are glad that you are here. In the chat, we have Marie T. She's our co-director. Glad that you are here, Marie. And Shelly Shells is in the chat. Rising on Eagle's Wings is in the chat, and a whole host of other people that are listening on Rumble and X. We're glad that you are here. Hopefully the sound is good. A little different setup going on tonight. As you can see, you don't have my lovely mug on your screen. Yes, my lovely mug is not on your screen tonight. And that's because we thought that the background image needed to say it all. And the background image does say it all. There were 300,000 unaccompanied minors that came across the border. Excuse me, a little cough here, so bear with me tonight. And that was during the last few years. And yeah, of course, 180,000 of them, according to DHS, are lost. Yep, they can't find them. Yep, we lost 180,000 kids that came across the border. These are mostly kids from Guatemala and other countries like that, Mexico and others. Yeah, what do you think happened to those kids? We're going to look into that tonight, and some of the stats are very shocking. And what we're going to highlight later on tonight in the show is how predators are taking advantage of parents' undocumented status to go after the children. Now, that shouldn't be a surprise, right? I mean, that's a threat they can hang over that child's head, right? I mean, if a predator wants to go and well, we can't say the M word, but do something to a child, I mean, all they have to say is, hey, if you tell anybody, I'll call DHS and you'll be deported. Your whole family will be deported. And with 300,000 kids, it's probably higher than that have come across the border, a lot of them missing. How many of those are being abused and are not telling anybody? Well, the stats that we have of how many kids of undocumented parents will blow your mind. This is a huge problem, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Also tonight, we have, yes, another teacher who got pregnant by a 12-year-old. Now, this isn't Alyssa from a week or two ago. Remember we talked about her, the Tennessee teacher who had her student's baby. This is yet another teacher, and we're going to look at that case. And each time we show you these cases, it's to ask ourselves, what can we learn from it? What were the warning signs? What were the flags that parents need to look out for? What should have been seen that could have stopped this abuse from taking place? And this teacher we're going to talk about later, she had an ongoing relationship with this child. We call it a relationship. It's really grooming and abuse for like 3 years. How in the world does a teacher have a relationship, quote unquote, relationship with a child, a 12-year-old, for 3 years and nobody freaking knows? We're going to look into that. So hopefully, just let me know if the sound is okay out there in the chat. Just somebody ping in there, let me know that it's all right. And while I'm waiting for that, I want to share with you our website, protectyourchildren.org. Protectyourchildren.org. Let me go ahead and bring that up for you. And we want to encourage you to visit protectyourchildren.org, as we have a lot of great things on there. If you look at your screen, we've got an in-depth protection packet, which details all the ways that you can keep your kids safe from predators online and in the community. Detailed guidelines, not your grandma and grandpa's one-liners here. Okay, these are detailed guidelines that you can go over with your kids. So it's warnings that they can have in their mind so they can stay safe. Lookouts, warnings and lookouts for parents, tips on preventing kidnapping, signs of possible predators around a child, all those kinds of warning signs, behaviors they should look for, a whole bunch of other great stuff to help keep your kids safe. That's the in-depth protection packet, which you can click on by going to our website, protectyourchildren.org. Zachary Bernhardt missing. We did a couple of posts earlier this week about Zachary Bernhardt, and let me tell you, the interest is still high. in this case. And we have not given up on that. We are being held back by financial restraints right now, which is stopping us from doing the investigation angles that we want to pursue. And you can always help us out with that by making a donation by visiting our website, protectyourchildren.org. Click on Help the Cause or Donate to Help Protect, and just put in the memo that you want this to go towards Zachary Bernhardt, and you can help us out with that. All our live shows, the podcasts are on the website, tips on preventing kidnapping. We have other topical podcasts that we've done, child protection videos, how to protect your kids safe online. You see it all there on the screen. Tons of education and awareness, free of charge, of course, on protectyourchildren.org. So check that out, definitely. All right. Shelly says the sound is good on her end. Thank you very much for that. Much appreciated. So the show tonight is jam-packed. We're going to talk about, well, we mentioned that teacher. We're going to talk about this border issue. Now, it's always a funny thing because we try not to be political on this show, right? But it's pretty clear that over the past 4 years, there's been nothing done to secure the border. There's been nothing done to stop the flow of kids coming across the border, unaccompanied minors coming across the border. It is the Department of Homeland Security under this last administration that lost track of 180,000 young people that they just don't know where they went. It is under this last administration where there has been no auditing procedures put in place. So after kids are placed with sponsors, okay, these are non-family, non-related sponsors, they can't find them after that. Right? I mean, this is just ridiculous. They put them with a sponsor and they say, oh, we background checked them, and as long as there's no criminal record, then all is good. Well, you guys are smarter than that. And you know that 88% of child predators have yet to be arrested. And they generally, how do I say the word, abuse an average of 100 children before they're caught. So just because there's no criminal background doesn't mean that these sponsors are safe. And these kids have now disappeared. And you better believe that they are some of the ones being trafficked that are showing up on these horrid adult sites. And yeah, where's the accountability? Where's the outrage? We need to close the border. And this administration claims they are going to do it. So we are imploring Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, to close that border, as he says that he will do, because this has to stop. This has to stop. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about a dad who was arrested for having 39,000 illegal images on his home computer. And you know what kind of images we're talking about here. And among that, they found a grooming manual. Yes, predators are sharing a manual. Like here we are on protectyourchildren.org, and we're sharing an in-depth protection packet. We'll call it a manual on how to keep kids safe from abusers. And these predators have their own manual on how you can attract certain children, how you can befriend parents, how you can abuse the children, how you can threaten the children, how you can keep them quiet, what to do if you think that they're going to tell somebody. It's sick. And they are sharing it with their PDF file friends. And this dad was caught with this manual. And some of the stuff in it will outrage you. But this is what we're up against, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we're up against. These people, these PDF files, these evil scum are coordinating attacks on our children. And what are we doing? Are we coordinating a defense? Well, that's what we're trying to do here. And we're going to talk about that because that is absolutely crazy what happens there. So unbelievable. Please share the live stream, like and share. We appreciate it very much. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're not. Like and follow us on all of our social media, which is located on our website, protectyourchildren.org. And we want to shout out the podcasters out there, not podcasters, we're a podcaster. The people who listen to the podcast, we want to shout out to them because they're awesome. We only have generally about 15 to 20 live viewers on this live show every Saturday. But the stream ends up getting about between 150 to 250 views after the fact. So, and those are all people listening to the podcast, the recording of the show. And we want to shout out them because we appreciate you. And we ask you to comment. We will still see your comments and give us feedback. You guys are very appreciated by us. So, all right, let's jump into our Hero Kids segment for tonight. And right after that, we will come back and jump into some other content. Hero Kids, kids that are brave, courageous, selfless, kids who know what to do under pressure, kids that have made a difference in the community, difference in people's lives, kids that thought about others first before themselves. They are hero kids. And we want to remind you of how awesome and precious kids are. They are innocent, they're cute, they're funny, they're trying to live their lives. And most of them, they just care about other people. They do. But when a predator gets a hold of them and they get trapped into a relationship, it changes their life. It changes the course of their life. It changes their mentality and everything else. And it's horrible. So we want to keep them safe so they can continue to do the awesome things that they're doing. So let's check this Heroes segment out. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes.
Kidnapper flees down the street. In his arms, a toddler just snatched from a playground. But not so fast. It's big sister to the rescue. Look as the brave 8-year-old races after the kidnapper. She won't let him get away with her baby brother. And not far behind, her 10-year-old brother, also in hot pursuit. He's still got the baby stroller. Now the Wright kids, yep, their last name is actually Wright, are being credited with doing the right thing by thwarting the kidnapping of their little brother. It happened in the small town of Sprague, Washington. Population just 500. 8-year-old Delisha and 10-year-old Brendan were playing in a park near their babysitter's house. With them, baby brother Owen, who was just 22 months old. The kidnapper grabbed little Owen and took off. A surveillance camera outside a grocery store captured the frightening figure running down the street. He almost looks like Frankenstein. Delisha screamed her head off as she followed the real-life monster, drawing the attention of these teens.
It really turned into blood-curdling screaming.
When you kind of pick up, there's a girl running behind him. He's running down an alleyway with a kid. Things don't look right.
A man grabbed a 2-year-old baby child and was running with it. The little kid started screaming.
Kathleen Beatty, the personal safety expert known as the safety chick, says making a racket is exactly the thing to do in such an emergency.
Using your voice, using your words, screaming, yelling, help, stranger danger, this is not my father, can be the difference between life and death.
The kidnapper was so worried he put Owen down in a vacant lot before escaping. A little boy who now has 2 new heroes in his life, Big Sis and Big Brother.
Instill in your kids that when they are out in the public, that if some adult comes up to them, they need to have that gut reaction and go the other way and yell and scream as loud as they can.
That's exactly right. These kids knew exactly what to do. And parents need to teach their kids, right? If somebody comes up to them, tries to grab them, or is threatening them or anything, those kids need to scream. They need to kick and scream and yell and make the biggest scene possible. In fact, parents are advised to even tell their kids, curse if you got to, right? Normally, we don't want our kids to curse. But I'll tell you what, when a little child yells out a curse word or two, people take notice because it's not something you'd hear from a little kid. But they need to make the biggest scene possible. Those two, the little brother and sister, I don't know, man. You'd think they would run the other way, but they're like, heck no, we're going to go after this guy. He's not taking the baby. I mean, it's incredible. And then the teenage boys that were just hanging around, they're like, something's not right. Let's go do something. We're going to stop this. We're not going to let this happen. And some of the kids today would have just looked the other way or maybe pulled out their phone and started recording, but not those 3 heroes. Those 3 heroes stepped in and did something. And that's why they are heroes to us. And they should be heroes to you as well. That's what we want to raise our kids to do, to make a difference, to make an impact, and not stand by and do nothing. And that's just incredible. So that is our Hero Kids segment for this week. And Marie T said, brave little ones, praise the Lord. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's incredible. All right. Let's see. What are we going to jump into. Let's get into this grooming situation. My God, this is just sick. This is absolutely just sick. This dad, oh my gosh, let me just tell you. This father, which I don't know how he's a father, but okay. Some people shouldn't even be fathers. I'm just saying, like, this is ridiculous. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit for y'all. All right, look at this. So we got this guy. This came from the Child Rescue Coalition on Facebook. I advise that you follow them on Facebook and Instagram. They do great work. Child Rescue Coalition. Jason Church, isn't that lovely, right? Jason Church, a father from Wales, has been found with a PDF file grooming manual, which contained a detailed step-by-step guide on how to find, groom, and abuse children from the age of 2. Let that sink in for a second. Tips in the 170-page book for men who want access to children included targeting single mothers who lack self-confidence and would welcome a new relationship, and getting a pet to make you a quote-unquote kid magnet. Church was also found to have downloaded more than 39,000 pictures and videos of children and babies as young as 2 months old being abused. He had previously pleaded guilty to 3 counts of possession of indecent images. 3 out of 39,000? And to possession of a PDF file manual, which is good to know that that's against the law, at least in this location, but has no prior convictions. See, this is what we're telling you. They're not, a lot of PDF files have not been arrested, so just don't rely on a background check. It's good to do them, but that's not your only thing you should be looking for. For these crimes, Church was sentenced to 22 months in prison, comprising 16 months for possession of indecent images. 16 months for that? And 6 months for possession of the grooming manual to run consecutively. Everyday law enforcement agencies worldwide rely on the Child Rescue Coalition's cutting-edge technology to identify and apprehend child abuse perpetrators. One such report led officers to investigate Church's home. It says protecting your family from these predators begins with educating yourself on the possible risks. Learn more on our blog. Well, thank you. We will check out the blog in just a minute. Oh, how about right now, actually? Let's do that. So what do we got? This is absolutely crazy, right? I mean, Shelley says they're vile monsters. This is like beyond crazy. I mean, listen, whether you're spiritual or not, man, there is some evil stuff going on here. I mean, this is just what is happening in the minds of these people and in their hearts. Like they have no conscience. Their conscience have been seared. I mean, it's just, how do you explain what they're doing? You can't explain what they're doing. And this sicko with his PDF grooming manual that he got from his PDF file friends, where they can sit around and talk about how they can abuse children and get away with it. I mean, they're coordinating. Let's check out the Child Rescue Coalition's blog post here. It says every day, Child Rescue Coalition monitors 30 to 50 million records linked with child abuse and reports its findings to law enforcement. Okay, first of all, I mean, thank you. Child predators are trading photos, videos, and documents in decentralized and unregulated file sharing networks and chat rooms. Which reminds me, years ago, the big thing was P2P, was person-to-person file sharing, right? There was a sharing program called LimeWire. And if you remember correctly, LimeWire was sued because of the amount of indecent child photos, we'll say, that was on that site. PDF files were able to go on there and download all sorts of abuse videos and images from that site. And LimeWire started out as a music sharing site where people can share music files with each other. But of course, the predators infiltrated and it became infested, just like Omegle. Remember that? And if you missed last week's show, by the way, Omegle is back. Oh, yes, Omegle's back. And they now have OME TV, OM TV, which is worse than the first Omegle. OM TV, man. Make sure your kids do not have any access to OM TV on their phones, computers, anywhere, because as soon as they click in there, the first thing it does is connect you right to video with complete strangers all around the world. And the PDF files are already on that site, and they're going after the kids. The amount of child abuse material floating around in cyberspace is frightening, but what is in these files and how do predators viewing and trading this material learn how to find and hurt our children? They learn from grooming manuals, and they are unfortunately quite legal. The legal definition of child abuse material is photos or videos that depict a child being abused. CSAM doesn't include the written word. So documents like grooming manuals are not illegal to possess or distribute. Now, what we were just reading, apparently the guy did get sentenced for having that manual. The information inside them is very dangerous, and it's being passed around to help people hurt children. You ready for this? It says, it is for that reason we decided to release a small part of one of these grooming manuals to help you understand exactly what we are facing. We've seen about a dozen of these being traded among child predators over 100,000 times. Over 100,000 times. Can't even imagine. It says 20 years ago, our kids were safe in their bedrooms. Well, not necessarily, but now with the internet and a connection to the outside world, they are not. So what is a grooming manual? Well, a grooming manual is a tool used by dangerous predators to educate themselves about how to harm children while avoiding law enforcement. These manuals are often found in the same online networks where predators trade child abuse material. Within these networks, predators seek to normalize their behavior and justify to each other that it is acceptable to abuse children, even going as far as believing that children enjoy it. This despicable mindset perpetrates the sharing of more child abuse material and allows predators to do better strategizing on how to prey on kids. Yeah. What do you think about that? It's crucial to acknowledge the existence of this dark side of society that may be unsettling for many to accept. By raising awareness and educating the public, hello, thank you. That's what Protect Your Children does, along with Child Rescue Coalition. We educate and raise awareness. By raising awareness and educating the public, we can help safeguard children from these harmful predators and ensure that parents are equipped to take appropriate measures in protecting their children. We want parents and educators to understand that abuse most often is committed by predators who are already in your circle of trust and are not only grooming children, but are grooming parents. See, we don't hear a lot about that. Grooming parents for their trust and time alone with their children. Now think about that. We haven't talked about that, right? But it's not only the kids that are being groomed for abuse, but the parents are being groomed for their trust, because once a parent learns to trust somebody around their children, then that person has unlimited access to their child alone. That's something that has to be considered. And as we saw, these PDF files are being taught to go after the parents who seem to lack self-confidence, who seem to be real needy, the single moms out there that are throwing themselves all over social media looking for a guy, talking about how hard it is to raise their kids by themselves. And then some predator is going to step up as this really nice guy who's going to come in and help rescue that mom and make life easier for her. And too many parents are just inviting these people in. Just inviting them over. Oh, this will be great. This is the new boyfriend. This is the new girlfriend. This is my child. Go take them out. Spend time with them. Learn to trust this person. They're going to be your new daddy. Incredible. Shelley said, never thought about the grooming of parents, but it makes sense. Glitter fart, like the name Glitter Fart in the chat. Hope everyone's having a great weekend and staying warm and safe. Thank you, Glitter. We hope you are as well. We're down here in sunny Florida, and it's actually, we got to 68 today, which was nice since it's been 35 every morning. Yeah, we're freezing to death down here. Let's get back to this article. Remember, the majority of child sexual abusers are already in your circle of trust. Remember that whole stranger danger thing? You know, where it's like kids were like looking over their shoulder every minute in case somebody was going to take them, and it was the creepy guy down the road with the long coat and the white van. Everybody was focusing so much on the strangers that might kidnap or abuse a child that nobody was looking at the inner circle. When the stats have consistently shown that the majority of these predators that abuse kids are coming from a parent's inner circle. The child already knows the person. It's not a complete stranger. In fact, it's only like 4% of the cases, it's a complete stranger. And what they mean by that is somebody that the child met for the first time. Let's look at what's inside this grooming manual that this father was found to have, along with his 39,000 images, illegal images. And a little warning from the Child Rescue Coalition on here. It says, please note that we're about to show you is graphic in nature. These words are coming from the Predator Manual that they track, and Child Rescue Coalition strongly opposes the views in this manual. Well, of course. You're listening to Protect Your Children, live broadcast every Saturday Night Protection Live. I'm your host, Christopher Gelson. We're glad that you joined us. If you missed any of the show, it will be available for podcast shortly after the show ends tonight. So this is the cover image of one of the documents that they discovered, which demonstrates clear intent to teach predators how to find kids and abuse them. Take a look at this. Of course, the standard little girl with the lollipop. I mean, this is already some sick crap. It's already some sick crap. And here's a small portion of the main index. I'm going to freaking lose it here. Look at this. Now, think about it. Anybody out there, any predator out there that has not yet to abuse a child and say they want to know, and they're like, how do I go about doing this? I don't want to get caught. Well, let me see. Maybe I could find this freaking PDF grooming manual, and it'll teach me everything I need to know, like a class on abusing children. Where do I find a child? Let's look at some of the subtopics there. The introduction, having own children or family equal access, single parents and moms with kids, babysitting, daycare, and schools. We know about that. We're going to talk about a teacher a little bit later. Another one. This is like number 125 of this school year already. Another female. Another one who got pregnant by a 12-year-old student. Wait till you see how that story came out. It's not normal, but wait till you see it. Children out in the wide open world, other creative methods, and some final words. Survey and approach to and create a relationship. I mean, look at this crap. Look at this. The practical steps for the predator. The first physical contact. The second physical contact. Exploring the child's genital. Exploring the adult's genital. What? Making love for the first time. What the hell is this? Now look, this is what these PDF files are doing out there. They are learning, studying, finding ways to track these children and find them and abuse them. And we have to be just as educated, in fact, even more, just as alert, just as aware. It says in this particular grooming manual, this predator shares the most common places to pick up children. The writer also explicitly details the type of communities and kids to target and ways to do it. It says it's frightening to think that there are wicked people in the world that not only practice S abuse with a child under the guise of child love. Remember that? NAMBLA, remember them? North American Man Boy Love Association, who were pushed underground, and we did a show on that a while back. You know where all those PDF files went since the FBI raided all their offices and closed them down? Yeah, they went online. Now they're coordinating online to target kids on social media. That's where they're all at. And those sickos actually think it's love. But they're also writing manuals to instruct others to do the same to innocent victims as young as 3 years old. The sad statistic is that up to 85% of individuals who view child S abuse material are already hands-on abusers. Up to 85%. And we don't want them getting their hands on materials that will teach them how to do even more damage. So it says, what can parents do to keep kids safe? We want parents to start to think about where their children are, who they're with. Can you trust them? Are the schools or daycare centers where your children spend the most time? Are they screening their employees properly? No, we know that. Beyond that, we want them to take practical steps to protect their kids. It says, does your child's perceived right to privacy supersede their safety? It is 100% your right to check their devices. Yes. And then it goes on to give you some tips on how to keep kids safe. Do not allow children to have their phones, laptops, or tablets in their bedrooms. A connection to the internet not only gives your child access to adult content, but also allows others to contact your children through video game chats, social media apps, and chat rooms. Don't allow your children to be alone with other adults. Most sexual abuse of children, I just said it, hopefully YouTube doesn't censor me. Most S abuse of children takes place when the abuser already knows the child and they may already be in your circle of trust. Now look, are there good adults out there that are spending time with kids? There absolutely are. So this, don't ever let your kids be alone with an adult is a bit extreme. I think that the proper path to take is education and awareness, right? Talk to your kids, check up on them, find out what they're doing when they're spending time with this person. And again, adults shouldn't be spending time with kids unless there's an openly stated reason. There's an agreement. We're talking about mentors and other great organizations that survive, and their purpose is to be a positive role model and influence on kids. Kids can really benefit from that. But that is an agreement that the parents are aware of, the child's aware of. There's an outside organization that's aware of it, so they're doing monitoring. They're talking with the kids, they're checking in. All that's super important. And parents, always check your child's devices, their search history, what they are posting, as well as their emails, texts, and social media direct messages. Oh my gosh. If it's too much work and parents don't have the time, then limit the apps that your children have for you to manage. And it goes on to talk about have the talk with your children, use parental control apps like Bark or Guardian, and so on and so forth. Man. There's a lot of stuff that can be done. Oakland Maid. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the show. Glad you're here. Oakland Maid. We're talking about this father who was arrested with 39,000 illegal images of kids, images and videos. And they found a PDF file, code for, PEDO file, PDF file, grooming manual that's being shared by predators, teaching them how to abuse kids, teaching them how to gain the trust of parents. See, this is why parents need to be educated and aware more than those freaking people. They're doing their work to make sure they can find ways around what we know when we have to learn more. We have to share the information. Unbelievable. Man. A little bit later in the show. We're going to run a little bit late tonight. Usually we do about an hour, but we'll probably be about an hour and a half tonight. Hope the guys can stick around. We're going to get into a little bit later this illegal border situation with the unaccompanied minors, where the Department of Homeland Security has admitted that they lost track of about 180,000 kids that came across the border. How do you lose track of these kids? Well, that's because they send them to live with so-called sponsors, and then they just lose track of them after that. How many of those do you think are being trafficked and abused? Tons. And we need to close the border. It's not even a political issue at this point. This is a child safety issue and keeping the drugs away from our kids issue. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. So, yep, grooming manuals are out there. The PDF files are learning. They're learning how to target the kids, where to position themselves, what jobs to get, how to gain parents' trust, how to manipulate and groom children into these abusive situations. Protect Your Children Incorporated exists to educate and raise awareness. We want to put the knowledge out there for the parents and for the guardians and for the good teachers and other good people that do not want to harm kids, so that they can be more educated, more aware, and help keep these kids safe. Listen, that's the only thing that's going to stop it. Education, awareness, and parental involvement. Parents, if the parents aren't involved, then these kids are just prey waiting to be attacked. And who's going to protect them? It's like the background image you're looking at shows, right? These sexual predators are saying, hey, let them come. We'll take care of them. We'll take care of the kids. No, I don't think so. All right, let's jump into this teacher. Man, we're going to try to zip through this so we can cover a lot of stuff tonight. But this is now the second teacher who got pregnant by a 12-year-old child. Now, that's still mind-blowing to me because I wasn't even aware a 12-year-old could make a baby, but apparently it's increasingly common these days, which that's a whole nother show. But this teacher was impregnated by a 12-year-old that she continually abused over a long period of time. And it went on for quite a period of time. And again, parents weren't aware. They weren't checking. They weren't monitoring. They were just blindly trusting, which is the biggest mistake you can make. Just because they got the word or the name teacher doesn't mean you can trust them. But they figured they could. This is brought to you by Law and Crime Sidebar. We're thankful to them always. We use their content, and they've never once copyrighted us, so we're very thankful for that. We'll be stopping and starting for commentary, but listen to what we can learn. There's going to be a guest on this show, and this guy is super, super smart with what we can learn and ways that we can protect our kids from these predator teachers. So let's take a look at this and learn together.
Elementary school teacher is accused of sexually abusing a student for years and having his baby, despite him being a child himself. And get this shocking case came to light after the alleged victim's father noticed an uncanny resemblance between the teacher's baby and his own son. Now, the teacher is facing serious charges as disturbing details emerge from their alleged relationship. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is a Law and Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to this? Yeah, well, Morgan & Morgan is stepping in to fight to hold these food companies accountable. With decades of experience fighting large corporations, they are ready to stand up for what families deserve: justice. So if your child under 21 has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or fatty liver disease, then visit www.forthepeople.com/food to learn more. 34-year-old Laura Karen was a fifth grade teacher at Middle Township Elementary School out in New Jersey when she was arrested last week for child sex crimes. Prosecutors say she raped a student from 2016 to 2020, starting when he was just 11 years old. But here's where the case takes an even more disgusting and disturbing turn, because in 2019, when the victim was 13, Karen allegedly gave birth to his child. She was 28 at the time. So how did authorities uncover this? How did they find out about this alleged abuse? This is different. So it all started with a social media post, apparently, because it's being reported that in December of 2024, the victim's father made a Facebook post pointing out that Karen's 5-year-old child bore a striking resemblance to both himself and his son, the alleged victim in this case.
Wow.
This post apparently raised a lot of red flags and sparked an investigation. We have a lot to get into. I want to talk about this more. I want to bring on former prosecutor and current sexual misconduct investigator Dan Shore, who's also the author of 2 books. Am I right, Dan? What are the titles of those books in case people?
Yeah, one is called Final Table, which came out a couple of years ago, and I have a new novel coming out in August that'll be distributed by Simon & Schuster. It's called Open Bar. They're both about sexual misconduct issues, and you can find them Amazon, anywhere else that books are sold.
All right, sounds good. So now I'm happy to have you here to talk about this, because this is a weird one. I mean, it's a disturbing one, but the idea that the victim's father had seen and made this post, and that's what sparked an investigation. Does it usually happen like that?
It's certainly unusual, and we live in an age where people are posting their thoughts on Facebook in a very unfiltered way, and usually you think if a father suspected that, he might go straight to law enforcement or to a school authority. Here, according to law enforcement, it started with a Facebook post where he was saying that the child looked like him and his son, and people fortunately picked up on that. It's important that if someone sees something online and there's an indication that there might be something egregious that happened, such as child sex abuse, that someone did escalate that and it did get to law enforcement and they were able to investigate it, because a lot of times people see things online and they just figure, well, it's not my problem, I'm not going to do anything about it. Apparently other people did raise flags about this, and that led to this investigation and this arrest.
We covered a case recently where somebody posted on social media, I forgot which platform, that they were the victim of abuse that had been going on at the school. And that, is things go viral, videos go viral. People said, oh, that same thing happened to me. And so it's amazing when you think about the power of social media. We talk about the negative influences of it, but the powerful influences of it, actually spreading a message and gaining awareness and traction, that you're seeing something like that. Now, going back to this case, according to detectives, Karen had reportedly been this victim's 5th grade teacher, as well as his brothers. And she reportedly befriended their parents, gained their trust, even offering to babysit the couple's 3 children at her home, which is what we're about to get into, is where much of this abuse happened. Dan, do you usually see that where somebody will befriend the parents, as a way to get into that household, or bring the children into their environment? You go after the parents, you go after the family, and that becomes even more concerning about who do you trust?
Absolutely. I think the stereotype in society for parents is to worry about the child being grabbed in a park by a stranger or on a playground. And there's this stranger danger that if I turn my head for a few seconds, my child's going to be taken, or something dangerous is going to happen. Those things do happen, but the much greater danger in society is people that you trust, people that ingratiate themselves to a family, become people who the family looks to as someone, well, they're safe because they're with this person who we know. And unfortunately, most cases of sex abuse that I've seen in my career, and I've been investigating these for about 25 years, they generally involve people that the parents knew or the child knew. And those are the ones that are often the ones who are committing acts like this. And it's tough when you want to trust someone. I know as a parent, you want to trust the people in your community, you want to trust the caregivers. Unfortunately, those are often the people who abuse that trust. Or at least the people.
Now think about that for a minute. I mean, that's kind of crazy. I mean, it's like it makes you almost not want to trust anybody with your child. But the reality is that there are good people out there. And what we always say is, if you have direct communication with your child, if you ask questions, not in accusing fashion, of course, but just general questions about, oh, hey, what'd you guys do today? What'd you guys watch? Did you watch a movie? Like, always inquire. Like, and again, this is a situation where you have an agreement where this child is supposed to be spending time with somebody, but you have to inquire. You got to be nosy. You still got to check their social media, check their messages, see what kind of messages are going back and forth with the child and that adult. You always have to keep your eyes open. And that man hit on what we're talking about. They're grooming parents as well as children. We'll probably have to do a show on that. But grooming parents, very, very interesting that we've never talked about that, but that is what's happening. So let's jump back in.
People who commit sex abuse tend to be the ones who are in positions of trust.
Unfortunately, you are very right, and that's a real big issue that we're seeing a lot, particularly the stories we cover here on Sidebar. Now, at first, these kids, so the victim, the brother, the sister, they would have had these sleepovers, or they had these sleepovers at Karen's home. But eventually, for some reason that hasn't really been released, the victim and his siblings, they started living full time with Karen. And in fact, during her first appearance at her hearing last week, the judge referred to Karen as a, quote, resource family parent for the children, which is, when in New Jersey, our understanding is what they refer to as foster parents. And Karen attended that hearing virtually, by the way, from jail. But during an interview with detectives, the victim's sister told them some very chilling details about what she witnessed. She said that she would often wake up to find her brother sleeping in Karen's bed, despite the fact that the kids shared a room upstairs. Even more disturbing, she claimed that Karen would enter the bathroom and lock the door when her brother was showering. And the victim's brother told police he once witnessed Karen sexually assaulting his brother when they thought he was asleep. And by the way, Dan, just to stop there, it's one thing in a lot of these cases, we have the testimony or the potential testimony of the victim, the child themselves. You know, the idea of, at a trial, they're going to be the only ones who'll testify to the abuse. But now if you have other eyewitnesses, other children, that raises this to a different level.
Now, what can we learn from this, right? Now, these kids are saying that they witnessed the boy in the bed with this teacher who is, I guess, some kind of a foster parent or resource parent or something. But again, you know, foster kids, we know the abuse that they can go through. We had a former foster kid on the show some weeks back, and he talked about the horrors that he went through with foster abuse. But think about it. These kids, obviously, why did they not say anything? I mean, this teacher would allegedly go into the bathroom and lock the door while the boy was in the shower. They saw the boy sleeping in the bed with the teacher, and they never reported this stuff. Now, 3 or 4 year period, why did the kids not say anything? That's always a good question. Were they afraid of them getting in trouble? Were they afraid of being taken out of the home? I mean, were they being threatened? What was going on? Kids need to know that if they see something, they got to say something. If they know that there's something that seems off, they have to speak up. And kids need to know this because they might see stuff when they're over at a friend's house or hear something at school, and they may not think anything about it. But if they hear something that seems kind of odd and they know it's wrong, they have to be encouraged to say something.
Definitely, because child sex abuse generally does happen with no one else around. So it is hard sometimes to prove those cases. And of course, all defendants are innocent until proven guilty. We'll hear as this case proceeds what her defense is, but certainly having another sibling who's saying that they witnessed something, including the actions that you described, that supports the allegations here in a significant way. Now, from the defendant's side, they'll have to demonstrate if they decide to contest these charges, why the sister might be saying that if it's not true. But if it is true, that certainly corroborates the allegations. And we have a child here who is supposedly the biological son of the abuse victim. So just DNA testing from that will certainly prove that there was sex abuse that occurred since the son was underage, and underage in a very significant way. This isn't someone who is just barely underage. This is someone who is very underage, very young. And if this is true, this was a significant violation of trust and very damaging to that child.
Yep, 100%. You can't forget that. It's so disturbing to say, but that baby is not only a living child who is now born into what is a very difficult set of circumstances, but also is now a key piece of evidence. Think about it like that. So going back to what I mentioned before, one of the siblings also claimed that after that baby was born, the victim moved into Karen's bedroom permanently. When interviewed by police earlier this month, the victim, who's now an adult, confirmed that there was a sexual relationship with his former teacher. He said that he had remained in contact with Karen up until his father's Facebook post in December. And in that post, the man said that Karen's child looked a lot like himself and his son. He noted in the post that Karen had been his son's teacher. That post was brought to the attention of the school superintendent, who then called the police. That's how this all spiraled. And according to the criminal complaint, which has been viewed by the Courier Post, after the Facebook post was published in December, the victim reportedly called his younger brother, confessed he was the father of Karen's baby, and the victim's sister also apparently told police that her brother texted her to admit he was the father, but demanded that she keep it a secret so Karen wouldn't get in trouble. That is a very common symptom we see as well, right? The idea of why hasn't this been reported earlier? Why is this only coming out now? It could be that you don't want to complicate the life of the mother of your child, or these victims or these alleged victims, when they're so young, they don't want to get the teachers in trouble. They might not realize that anything wrong is going on, Dan. There's a number of reasons why we see this not being reported sooner, right?
Yeah, we see that victims of sex abuse of all ages, including adults, there's misplaced self-blame. There's sometimes affinity towards the abuser because they did have an intimate relationship together, and they may feel they don't want to get them in trouble. Also, if you just think about society, what do we tell kids all the time? Trust your teachers, listen to your teachers, don't talk back to your teachers, right? So children are raised to think, well, my teacher can do no wrong, they're good people. And if the teacher is grooming them and taking advantage of that grooming and that trust to sexually abuse them, a lot of children may not understand what's wrong, what's right, or if they do, they're afraid of retaliation, they're afraid of getting in trouble. Very often, we don't know about this case in particular, but a lot of times the abusers of underage people will say to them, if people find out, you will get in trouble, you'll be punished, you'll have severe consequences. And that can really bring true to somebody who's afraid to speak up.
So what do we
see? This is the crazy thing, right? He hit on the fact that a lot of times kids will blame themselves. Now, we want to highlight that there's two types of abuse situations, right? There's your groomer who grooms a child, manipulates a child, and God, I hate to use the word consensual, but you know where I'm going, where there's no physical threats to make a child do something. It's where they've been groomed and manipulated into believing that what is happening is actually not that wrong, and there may not be any physical, like beating or bruising or hurting going on. So the child thinks that this is just a normal situation that nobody else understands. That they fill the kids' heads with these lies, right? And then there's of course the threatens, the kids who are threatened and they're forced to do stuff, and we see a whole set of behavior changes that are different between the two situations. But a lot of times these PDF files use the same tactics. They tell the child that they're going to get in trouble. Well, why would I get in trouble? Well, you didn't stop it. You kept coming to my house. You wanted this to keep happening. So that means now you're going to be in trouble, right? This is the kind of crap that they tell these kids. Remember the Catholic Church situation? The priests were telling the kids that they were abusing that if they told anybody, then God would be angry at them because they got a priest who's supposed to be the father, right, in trouble, and it would hurt the church, and that God would be angry at the kids if they said something. How twisted is that? But this is what these predators do. And there are tons of kids out there who are in abuse situations right now, and they're afraid to say anything because they think it's their fault. They think that they're going to get in trouble, or they're scared. And we have to be educated as parents and caregivers and guardians to be able to teach the kids that none of that stuff is true. No, they're not going to get in trouble. No, they don't have to be scared because you're going to keep them protected. And it doesn't matter if it's a teacher or a priest or a cop or a counselor or a mentor or anybody like that.
We know about Laura Karen well. She was apparently raised in Pennsylvania, attended Cabrini University, which has since closed down. She played on the school's women's basketball team, studied elementary education according to the university's basketball roster. She started working at Middle Township Elementary School number 2 in 2014, not long after graduating. This is according to New Jersey pension records. And the school district says that Karen has been placed on paid administrative leave pending the investigation. In a statement, Superintendent Dr. David Salvo said, when the district was first advised of the allegations, the staff member was immediately placed on and continues to be on paid administrative leave. And Karen is currently being held at the Cape May County Correctional Facility. I'll talk about what happens if she's convicted, but the school face any liability here, Dan?
It depends what they knew. If they knew that something was going on, or if they failed to have appropriate policies and procedures to protect this child, then there could be liability. It really depends on their response, how involved they were with policing, what their teachers were doing, where the misconduct happened. Did it all happen away from the school, or did anything happen on school grounds? Those are some of the factors that lawyers would look at when determining whether there's liability here for the school.
So it's not just if they knew, it's should they have known. That's also a fair assessment too, right?
I want to stop right there and point something out. There are certain political avenues. We're trying to keep this politically free, but where companies were being sued if they didn't provide a certain curriculum or a certain opportunity for a certain group of people to express themselves in the way that they want. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. And companies, if they said, no, we're not really interested in that, we just want good workers, we don't care about their sexual identity or what they're doing outside of the workplace, it's none of our business, we just want them to come in and work hard and we'll pay them for their work and that's it, end of the day. Okay? How about this? These school systems, do they not have a responsibility to teach these kids? Now, parents need to be doing it too. But if you look at the one place where the kids spend the majority of their lives, right, at least up to 18 years old, 17 or 18 years old, and they spend all this time in these classrooms and spend all this time around these teachers and other kids, do the schools not have a responsibility to have an organization like Protect Your Children or the Child Rescue Coalition or somebody to come in and do a small conference or a small seminar, a presentation to the whole school that says to the kids that this is wrong and points out to them the warning signs and the threats and the tricks and the traps? And I'm starting to think, you know what, when this is happening so much in the school systems that maybe the schools have to be held responsible here. It's their employees that are doing it. And what are the schools doing to teach the kids? Absolutely nothing. We had a child on a few weeks ago, and he said in his school, there has not been ever one teacher, one time, one place that has ever said, look out for this. We think that the school should be held responsible. If you're going to be responsible for teaching our kids and supervising our kids, and so many of them are being abused by your employees, then you have a responsibility to keep them safe. That's just our view.
Right. If it was reasonable for someone to know if, for instance, if other people had reported suspicions and nothing was done with those suspicions, and we see that with other schools. I investigate educational, institutional sex abuse in a lot of places, and very often there's rumors going around, and rumors may be not true, but rumors may be something that a school should look into to see if there is veracity behind them. And sometimes schools don't, and that can often lead to liability, that you heard a lot of people talking that something bad was happening and you didn't take steps to follow up on that. So we don't know what the situation was here, but I'm sure there'll be an investigation to look into that.
Right. And now, to be clear, I'm not sure if this is a surprise to anybody, but if convicted, she could face some serious time behind bars. It's our understanding in New Jersey, first-degree crimes like aggravated sexual assault carry sentences of 10 to 20 years in prison. You have second-degree crimes like sexual assault, child endangerment that could result in 5 to 10 year prison sentences. Dan, I don't know if you're familiar with the law on that. That's what we found, but correct me if I'm wrong. But generally speaking, I would imagine it's a long prison sentence. And if she's convicted, would it be towards the longer range that rather than the shorter range?
Yeah, the ranges that you just mentioned are consistent with other states that I've worked with. And I think that because the child was so young when the alleged sex abuse started, then the prison sentence, if she's convicted, would be towards the higher end of that. If someone had no criminal history and someone was barely under the age of consent, it would still lead to a conviction and there would be some kind of punishment. But I think there are so many more aggravating factors here. The fact that it went on for so long, it wasn't one time. This was allegedly going on for years. There was another child who was in the home which, as you mentioned before, that person's a witness, but also that child might also be a victim being exposed to sex abuse occurring while that child was also in the home. So there's a lot of aggravating factors here that, if true, would lead to a higher sentence.
By the way, if you're listening to this story, you might say, why does this sound strangely familiar? Well,
Oh, it does.
the unfortunate reason is because we recently told you here on Sidebar about the case of Alyssa McCommon. So this is a former Tennessee teacher who's going to spend more than 2 decades in prison after she admitted she raped one of her students, causing her to become pregnant. The abuse started when he was just 12 years old, around the same age as the alleged victim in the Karen case out in New Jersey. And McCommon was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole for child rape, statutory rape, sexual exploitation of a minor. Her case, McCommon's case, made headlines, especially because of all the twists and turns and the shocking details. According to a police investigation, McCommon worked as a 5th grade teacher, just like Karen, and then a 4th grade teacher at Tennessee elementary schools. The investigation uncovered allegations that McCommon targeted multiple students, typically by befriending them online while playing video games. She then used social media to convince the children to send nude photos and engage in sexual activities. It's believed that McCommon abused as many as 21 children. And when she was booked into jail in September of 2023, she was able to post a $25,000 bond, but her release had a very specific condition: no contact with the victim or any minors other than her own kids. What do you think happened? McCommon couldn't really follow the rules. She was rearrested, this time for stalking one of the children that she was accused of victimizing, even sending him texts that he would, quote, regret this. She went right back to jail on new criminal charges of coercion of a witness, aggravated stalking, harassment, and then during a court hearing, the stunning revelation that she's pregnant. And prosecutors played a recording where McCommon told the victim she was going to have his child.
Just forget we ever talked, okay? I'll raise this baby, and I love this baby, and I'll do it by myself. I'm gonna raise this baby. I can do this. I tried to tell you when it comes out looking like you. We don't have to talk anymore. Just please, God, tell me you're not gonna say anything. I'll never speak to you again.
As we mentioned, we talked about DNA testing before. The DNA testing later proved that McCommon was indeed.
That is absolutely heart-wrenching. I mean, can you imagine? She's talking to this 12-year-old. Like, I mean, what kind of pressure and mental issues is this child going to have? I mean, she's talking to this 12-year-old like it's her husband, like it's an adult. I mean, there is something really wrong here, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. I mean, they think they're in a normal relationship with a 12-year-old. I mean, and these are teachers. Man, it's unbelievable. Let's finish this up.
Pregnant with the victim's child. And it was later revealed by the district attorney that the mother of the victim has custody of this grandchild. So in addition to 25 years in prison, the judge ordered that McCommon has to register as a violent sex offender, can't have any contact with the victims, and of course her teaching license was also revoked. You know, Dan, I'll give you an opportunity to talk about that case, but I also wanted to ask you, what happens to the child in these circumstances? Would it be that the child then goes to live with the victim in this case, this young man who's now an adult? I'm going back to the Karen case. What usually happens to the children who are conceived during the course of sexual assaults?
It's another really challenging part of this, because the person who is in prison obviously is not going, and allegedly, or maybe once they're convicted, not just allegedly, committed sex abuse, they're not going to be given custody for a child like this. Maybe they'll get some visitation. And the other person who was a minor when the sex abuse happened, even if they've reached an age where they're an adult, they still might not be in a position in life to raise a child, right? Even just because someone reached the age of 18 or early 20s, they may not be ready to start caring for them. So sometimes you look for other family members, maybe a grandparent, uncle, aunt, but it is really challenging to find someone who could give that person a stable home when they were brought into this world in such an unstable, challenging way.
What would be her defense, by the way? You mentioned it before, that they might come up with defenses, maybe say that the victim in this case, the siblings are all lying, but again, the DNA test of the baby would be pretty conclusive. Tell me what possible defense, other than, I guess, pleading guilty?
Yeah. Right. Well, certainly if there's DNA showing that the child is the biological child of the two people and one is underage, that you can't contest that in a serious way. Maybe you can contest some of the aggravating factors. Maybe the defendant can say that it wasn't really going on for as long as the other person said it was, that it was a 1 or 2 time thing. If there's another sibling or another witness who's corroborating some of this, you have to, if the defense attorney would probably try to come up with a strategy to say what's their motivation to fabricate, but it's really challenging. Again, you have DNA, you have another witness in the case that we've been talking about. That's really hard to contest. So the defendant could plead guilty and ask for a lighter sentence. It would be tough with all the aggravating factors to get a light sentence, but maybe they could reduce some prison time in exchange for pleading guilty and not making the victim go through a trial.
I don't know. Really, really disturbing case. But Dan Shore, thanks for coming on, breaking it down with us. Really appreciate it.
It was great talking with you. Thank you.
Also, one more quick update for you in this case. So after a pretrial detention hearing today, Karen was actually released from jail while her case moves forward, and her next court appearance is scheduled for the end of February. We'll keep an eye on it. And that's all.
What do you have to say? I mean, that is insane. But this is how disturbing. Marie T just said very disturbing in the chat. Yeah. I mean, there are multiple things going on here. And, not to mention the fact that this was happening for 3 or 4 years. There were warning signs, flags all over the place. Nobody said nothing. Nobody double checked. Nobody checked up on these kids. It's a failure on so many levels. It should have never been allowed to happen in the first place, let alone go on for 3 or 4 years. But again, people that are blindly trusting, people that are just going on with their lives and not thinking anything like this could possibly happen. There's tons of parents out there that are seeing behavior changes in their kids, and they're thinking it's just teenage rebellion, and sometimes it is. Kids have all the answers today. You know how that is. But, maybe a child's misbehaving because something like this is happening. Maybe they are involved with a predator. Maybe they're trapped into a sextortion situation online, which we've talked about, where they're being threatened. Maybe there is stuff happening that you have to look at that. When a child's misbehaving and it's out of their norm, you got to sit down and say, hey, what's happening? This isn't like you. What is going on? Trust me. You got to talk to your kids and find out. Don't just ground them and punish them and move on. I mean, certainly there has to be discipline for things, but it's more important to find out why they're misbehaving, right? What's going on? I mean, it's just crazy that this continues to happen over and over again. And it's always social media. It's these teachers. It's people that the parents know. And time again, we find out that the parents were not being nosy. The parents were blindly trusting. They were ignoring the warning signs that these kids have been giving out in most of the cases, behavior changes and stuff like that. All that needs to stop. I want to remind you that Protect Your Children Incorporated hosts a live show every Saturday night like this, 8 p.m. We post all week long on social media. Our website, protectyourchildren.org. Protectyourchildren.org is loaded with education, resources, and awareness to help parents and kids be informed on this epidemic that we're facing of child predators who are preying on our kids. So we encourage you to visit the website. Also, we ask you if you can help us by any way by sharing our content, liking, subscribing, sharing. Sharing is key. Or even making a donation. Every penny that comes in goes directly to advertising and trying to get this content out to more people. We don't want to just teach the choir, right? The choir already knows, but we want to get it to the people outside of our immediate circle. And that's the problem with social media, right? I mean, if you go on your social media feed, 95% of it is stuff that you agree with already. Because that's what social media has done. Compartmentalized everybody, right? But to get the content out to people who may not be aware that this is going on, it takes money. It takes advertising. It takes promoting, content and videos and shows like this. Everybody at Protect Your Children, nobody takes a salary. Everybody's volunteer. Nobody's making a profit. nonprofit. So we ask for your donations to help us reach more people. We have a new campaign we're starting soon. It's called 10 for 10. And we've actually done the research on this, and it's $10 a month, and automatic recurring $10 a month will reach 10 families. No joke. We've looked at this on social media. Just $10, that post reaches at least 10 more families. Just think about that for a minute. $10 a month, 10 families reached, and those kids are protected. So we're going to be launching this campaign soon. You can see all about that on our website, protectyourchildren.org. Click on donate to help us out. We appreciate it greatly for that. All right. Let's jump into the unaccompanied minor situation. And again, we're not a political organization. Okay. We're just trying to speak the facts. All right. We're just trying to speak the facts and what's exactly going on here. And this article, we're not going to go through the whole thing, but this talks about what is happening to unaccompanied alien children when they cross the border. What happens to them? Where do they go? All right. And we're going to skip through this real quick just to kind of look at some of the facts here. The New York Times released a trove of raw government data on unaccompanied alien children who have crossed the U.S.-Mexico border in recent years. Among over 10,000 pages of information is data on the number of children who crossed the border into America without an adult and then were handed over to someone other than a family member. From January 2015 through May of 2023, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services released tens of thousands of minors who crossed the border illegally to sponsors who weren't an immediate or distant relative, raising concerns about human trafficking and forced labor. Think about that. So the New York Times sued the government to gain access to the records, which reveal more than 550,000 minors crossed the border illegally. Now, these numbers are all over the place. We heard 300,000. There's 550,000. There's hundreds of thousands. And that was between 2015, halfway through Barack Obama's second term as president, through May of 2023, about 2 years and 4 months into Joe Biden's presidency, and from 2017 through 2020 when Donald Trump was president. The data reveals that 37,000 unaccompanied alien children were released to an unrelated sponsor. 24,253 of which were released during Biden's presidency between January 2021 and May 25th, 2023. Now let's look at this. An unaccompanied minor is a child under 18 who crosses the U.S. border without a parent or legal guardian. They're often asylum seekers who have fled their homes. Who are unaccompanied minors? They have no legal immigration status in the U.S. They're often from Central America, but can also come from other countries. Okay. Many have experienced trauma and exploitation. And what happens to these unaccompanied minors? They're often apprehended by immigration authorities and placed in the care of the Office of Refugee Resettlement. They may be eligible for immigration relief, such as asylum through U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Now, the risks for unaccompanied minors, they're at high risk for physical and mental health issues, including malnutrition, dehydration, and sexual assault. They're also at high risk for trafficking and exploitation. Now, what agencies are involved? The Department of Homeland Security, we talked about them before. They're the ones who came out and said they lost track of 180,000 kids. We just can't find them, they said. You lost 180,000 kids that came across the border? You lost them? You don't know where they're at? Who'd you place them with? The Department of Homeland Security is the first agency to apprehend unaccompanied minors. Also, the Department of Health and Human Services is the other federal agency that is initially responsible for unaccompanied minors. And this goes into why they're traveling alone to the U.S. border. Record numbers of unaccompanied minors have crossed the southern border since 2021. In 2022, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services received a record 128,904 unaccompanied minors, up from 122,000 the prior year. The vast majority of these children hail from Guatemala, Honduras, in El Salvador. Scroll down to the bottom. While statistics show that 70% of unaccompanied minors are between the ages of 15 to 17, that's 70%, the percentage of children between the ages of 0 and 12 has grown 4% since 2018. And so many of these children have experienced severe trauma and have been subjected to horrific exploitation en route to the border. Now think about that. Now, why are we telling you this? Well, here's the problem. Predators use threats to control kids. Now, just think about this for a minute. Hypothetically, just think about a hypothetical situation here. You got a parent or two parents who are in this country illegally. All right? They're working, they're doing whatever they're doing, and they're here illegally, which means they're always looking over their shoulder, wondering if they're going to get deported, right? They have kids staying with them. Predators are going to come to these kids, and they're going to abuse these children. And they're going to tell those children, hey, if your parents are here illegally, we're going to call DHS. If you tell anybody about what's happening, we're going to call and you're going to get deported. Your parents are going to be taken away from you. You're going to go to a foster home, or you're going to get shipped back to your country. Just think about that. And you say, well, how would the predator know? Because we know what they do. They groom. They talk to these kids. They get to know them. They build up a trust with them. And these predators find out that these kids have parents that are here illegally, and they're going to use that against the child. So on one side, we have all these kids coming across the border. They're getting lost in America. And the ones that aren't getting lost in America, that are going with these so-called sponsors, right, are being threatened all the time with immigration status. Think about that for a minute. This is a huge problem. Man, it's crazy. Let's check out this video real quick. It's like 4 minutes, but it's important to check this out. Ready?
Now, to talk more about this case is Lieutenant Chris Olivares, a spokesperson for the Texas Department of Public Safety. It is always good to see you. Thanks so much for making the time tonight.
Great to be with you, Natasha. Good evening.
And you actually first shared this video of this abandoned 4-year-old little girl. Can you tell us anything about where she may be now, and also what happened to the smuggler?
Well, I mean, first off, Jorge has been doing some great reporting. And actually, I shared that video because, I want the American people to see the impacts of this current border situation that we've been in for the last 3+ years, and how it impacts unaccompanied children that are coming across that border. I think just by that phone call alone, hearing the mother, if it is the mother, in fact, that's another thing too, is that we don't know exactly, who the person is behind that phone call. If it is a mother or a legal guardian, whoever it may be, but it's all too common now. It's becoming more a common occurrence now, where we're starting to encounter more unaccompanied children. That little girl, she's still in, federal custody right now with U.S. Border Patrol. And after that, they turn over to Health and Human Services. And then from there, we don't know exactly where they end up. We never know, and it's kind of even hard for me to even say that as a police agency in Texas, that, we don't even know where these children end up. All we do know is that the brief moments that we have with these children on the border, it's very brief. All we can do as a state police agency is try to talk to these children, see if there's any signs of abuse or exploitation, or if a child makes an outcry that they've been abused on their journey to the United States. But for the most part, other than that, we turn these children over to Border Patrol, and from there, we don't know exactly where they end up.
And the smuggler has been arrested?
Well, this particular case is 2-year-old. There was no smuggler involved. These children came across, I think in that particular group with that 2-year-old that you showed that video of, there were 60 that came across that day, 60 unaccompanied children. Now, we had multiple cases after that. We actually had a 10-year-old little boy from El Salvador on Thanksgiving morning that was brought across by a smuggler from Mexico and was left abandoned, and the child was lost. Luckily, one of our state troopers was there to able to recover that child. And also just this past weekend on Friday, there was a 5-year-old little girl that we actually were able to capture on a camera image where a smuggler was bringing the little girl across the river, and then was then given to another smuggler, which we were able to arrest that smuggler. So we've had multiple events during this week involving unaccompanied children, and it really shows the inner workings of how these criminals are operating, and also how some of these family members, if they are family members, in fact, how they even allow their child to make this long, precarious journey to the United States at the hands of criminals. I mean, I couldn't see myself doing that with my own child. I don't see anybody else can do that, but they've been put in a situation right now that they're desperate. They got to get their children across the border. So the only way they can do that is by paying a criminal smuggler to get them across.
Yeah, and it was an emotional phone call. The woman claiming to be the mother saying that she believed hiring smugglers to bring her daughter here would be safer than leaving her in Honduras. You know, to your point, you say that Texas agents, just Texas, have encountered more than 140 unaccompanied children in just the first 3 days of the week.
Right.
How young are some of these unaccompanied children, and why is this happening more? Why now?
Well, the children that we've come across, I mean, the ages have ranged from 2 all the way to 17. And the reason why I believe we're seeing more of an influx of unaccompanied children, because if we go back and look at with the current administration, whatever agreement they made with Mexico to get the numbers down, they've been able to manage the numbers since January. But with that, there is no safety mechanisms, there is no protocols in place to protect unaccompanied children. That's why we're seeing an influx of unaccompanied children coming across that border, because they will, in fact, at some point get released. And I think that's where we look at, you know, the dangers behind that and who's involved with these criminal organizations that are bringing these children across. I can't even imagine, as I said, you know, just seeing some of those photos from the mother, there are other children involved in that stash house. And we know how stash is, how they operate, very poor conditions. Sometimes there's no running water, electricity, food, and they're in there also with other adults, possibly other criminals. So it's a very dangerous environment for these children to be exposed to. And I think we're going to continue to see more of that, unfortunately, until we actually have some type of, you know, mechanism in place to protect these children and to, you know, deter the incentive from having these children come across by themselves.
Okay, Lieutenant Chris Oliveras, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
Yeah, exactly. And he made the point. And again, we're not trying to be political here, but this comes down to politicians, right? I mean, if we're going to keep the border open, not to mention the drugs and everything else that's coming across the border, but if you're inviting and you're saying it's okay, hey, send your kids this way, then you're sending your kids across not only a very dangerous trek, there's smugglers, human traffickers. How many of these kids are not making it to the border? And then, as we saw, when they get to the border and they get apprehended and they get placed with some kind of a sponsor, right? And then DHS loses track of the kids. It's absolutely crazy. Eric, welcome to the chat. He's asking, did Biden's channel get taken down? I don't believe so. But you know what's interesting, Eric, is Biden and his gang are usually on our live stream here. They're usually here. Last week they weren't, and this week they weren't. So I'm not sure what's going on with Biden. I might have to reach out to him on Facebook and see what's going on. But yeah, Oakland said politicians are the ones eating the kids. I mean, listen, we don't know what's happening to these children. We just, you know, but it's the whole point is if you leave the border open and these kids come over here and you end up, you know, responsible for what happens to them, you know, someone's got to be held accountable for this. And so we're calling for it to be closed. This has to stop. It's like a constant flow of kids coming over without parents that are getting placed with so-called sponsors and people within this country. And then DHS and Health and Human Services are losing track of these kids. They don't know what's happening to them. We'll tell you what's happening to them. They sexual predators. They're getting a hold of these kids, the traffickers. And they're being passed around. And you'll never see the majority of them ever again. How can we stand by and be okay with this? Now, Donald Trump says he will close the border. We hope he does. And again, this isn't a Republican-Democrat thing. This is a child protection thing. Excuse me. Oakland said they shut Biden down. Oh, that was a great channel. I'll have to see what the heck happened. And Eric, you're more than welcome. We're here every Saturday, 8 p.m. till about 9:30. That stinks about Biden. I wonder what happened. Maybe copyright issues or something, but we'll have to check it out and see. All right, let's finish this up. Let's look at one more quick video here. and then we're gonna wrap this up. It's just crazy. This here talks about the millions of U.S. citizen children. We're gonna look at this first that have undocumented parents and family members. Before we do that, I want to share a video with you, and then we're going to jump to this article right here. This is going to blow your mind with how many kids are in this country that have undocumented parents and family members and what that means for them. Because again, predators are going to use that status of those parents in order to threaten the parents and threaten the kids. That's what's going to happen. Let's check this out real quick. We'll be right back.
Thousands of unaccompanied children arrive at the U.S.-Mexico border each year, most coming from Central America. It's a long, often dangerous journey, and Amna Navaz spoke to a group of sisters making the trek alone, and she joins us now from the Arizona border. Amna?
Jeff, that's right. Just yesterday, in a remote stretch of the Arizona border with Mexico, we met three young girls, three sisters. Genesis is 14, Nicole is 13, and little Valeria is just 8. Now, these sisters had just made the 1,500-mile journey from Chiapas in southern Mexico, where they called home, up to the U.S. border. Their mother had actually left years ago. She'd come to the States as the sole provider to support her family. The girls had been living with a great-grandmother who could no longer care for them, so they headed north to reunite with their mother. Here, in fact, is what Nicole told us about that trip.
How did you know where to go or who to go with?
We got to know a group and we started trusting each other and helping each other.
Why did you leave Chiapas in the first place?
Because it's too dangerous. There's a lot of drug trafficking and other stuff.
Jeff, as remarkable as it is to see three young girls who have made that very long, very dangerous journey on their own, these sisters are part of a growing trend officials tell us they are seeing at the U.S. southern border. More unaccompanied minors arriving there. In 2022, a record high of over 150,000. And like other people arriving at the border, they are coming from more and more countries. So we've seen some officials tell us they've seen unaccompanied children arriving from as far away as Egypt, India, and China. Jeff?
And these journeys are incredibly dangerous for anybody, let alone three young girls traveling without adults. What did the sisters you met say about that?
No, the girls in many ways are lucky, Jeff, because they traveled on planes and on buses and then on foot for hours. You know, we connected with their mother. We spoke to her on the phone and were able to talk to her not only to get her permission to speak with the girls, but also to hear what she had to say. She said she felt she had no choice. She had to bring her daughters to her. She told them to stay calm and to stick together. I asked actually the youngest girl, Valeria, if she was scared at any point in the journey. Here's what she said.
Was it scary at any time? Was she worried?
Dime acerca del viaje. ¿Tuviste miedo?
No. ¿Por qué no?
¿Por qué no?
¿Por qué no? Because you were with your sister?
Porque estabas con tus hermanas.
You know, Jeff, when we met the girls, they had been out there for hours. They'd long run out of food and water. The humanitarian aid group we were with, the Green Valley Samaritans, offered both, but they were waiting for Border Patrol to come and pick them up. As unaccompanied minors, they would be prioritized. I should mention, when we left them, hours went by. Because of some confusion and a lack of Border Patrol resources, the girls somehow got left behind at the wall with a larger migrant group. Night fell and the temperatures dropped. It is pitch black out there in rough terrain. It's dangerous with the cartels coming through. And the girls, in a panic, called their mother, who called us. We were then able to call around to our contacts and alert Border Patrol. There were unaccompanied children still out there on the wall. They sent a car overnight to go retrieve them. But all of this just underscores how incredibly precarious this journey can be, even when the girls felt they'd reached safety in the United States. Jeff?
So what happens now, Amna, to those three young girls and to other unaccompanied minors who are making similar treks?
Well, for these three girls, there is now a multi-agency effort that's been triggered. They'll be passed into HHS custody, which has a system to care and house unaccompanied migrant children. They will vet their mother, hopefully reunite them in the coming weeks. We'll continue to follow their story. But the larger question you ask here is exactly right, Jeff. It's how is the U.S. going to continue to provide and care for what we know are a rising number of unaccompanied children who are now coming from further and further afield? It's just one of the many challenges at the border that U.S. authorities now have to deal with.
Well, we'll tell you how they fix it. And Oakland made, thank God, yes, that they're, the girls appear to be safe, but here's how you fix it. Close the freaking border. That's it. Stop the flow. That's it. You know what I mean? And the word's going to get around real quick to other countries. If that border is secured and it's closed and they can't get through, don't send your kids up here. Now, listen, it is heartbreaking that these kids are coming from some areas that are just absolutely poor, crime ravaged, full of predators in those areas. We get it. But you can't send them to America. They're going to get trafficked on the way here between the smugglers and the traffickers and the PDF files. And then we can't even be sure that once they get here, that they're going to get into the hands of people who are safe to protect them. You just can't. Just close the border and stop this madness. All right, final thing we'll look at here real quick, and we're going to close up. We thank you for staying with us. It's been a long show tonight. I want to look at this really quick. Millions of U.S. citizen children have undocumented parents and family members. Look at this. 4.4 million U.S. citizen children under the age of 18 lived with at least one undocumented parent as of 2018. This is some old numbers. It's a whole lot more now. 6.1 million U.S. citizen children under the age of 18 lived with an undocumented family member. As many as half a million U.S. citizen children experienced the deportation of at least one parent from 2011 through 2013. Now, I just want to share these numbers with you. This article is amazing. It comes from American Immigration Council. But think about that. We are talking about millions of kids, millions, that are here and the parents are undocumented, which means these sexual predators can use that against the parents and against the kids. And this is what's happening. They abuse a child wants to speak up, they don't want to do it. And these predators will tell them, if you say anything to anybody, your parent's going to get deported. You're going to get deported. You might be sent back to your home country. And this is just the problem. We get that there are some good people that are coming here that just want to make a better life. We understand that. America's a place to do that. But you got to do it legally and you got to do it the right way. But if America continues to let the border be open and all these kids come across unaccompanied, remember, hundreds of thousands of them, and DHS lost track of 180,000 of them, then they are feeding the problem of trafficking and child exploitation in this country. And they're guilty of it. So we need to close the border to stop this. Send a message that says, stop sending your people here. Don't send your kids this way. That's just the bottom line. We have to do it. For anybody who joined late, the show is recorded and it will be available in podcast form with about 15 minutes after the show ends. Dominique, Oakland Maid, Eric, Marie T, Rising on Eagle's Wings, all the others in the chat, part of the show, we thank you, and everybody else listening online. Let the show raise awareness and educate you and educate others. The best way we can do that is have conversations with others about what we're learning and sharing the content, not just one time, but maybe come back a day or so later, 2 days later, share it again, retweet, share the live stream. Let's get the information out to the people who need to hear it so that they can take steps and protect their kids, whether it's from sick groomers that have grooming PDF files, manuals, or 39,000 images of kids and videos on their computer, as we saw. Whether it's another predator teacher who has a multi-month or multi-year relationship with their student, inappropriate, and nobody seems to know. We got to be on the defense here. We have to be on the defense here. If these PDF files are working together with manuals and teaching each other how to prey on our kids and not get caught, then we have to be just as educated so that we can teach our kids how to be protected from them and teach our parents how to be protected from them. That's our responsibility. We have to do it. Because if we don't, who's going to do it? We will ask you if you can donate to help support the mission. Please do so. Visit our website, protectyourchildren.org. Donate to help protect children. It is a PayPal link. This way we do not see any of your personal information. But we thank you in advance for helping us out with this. The only way we can get this information out to more people is through your donations. It costs money to advertise. It costs money to spread the word. We don't like it, but that's what happens. Since we started this campaign, this 10 for 10, we're talking $10 a month, reaches 10 families. We've had 2 people sign up now for monthly donations. We're very thankful for that. And together we can start reaching more and more people on a regular basis. You can consider doing that. Visit protectyourchildren.org. Click on donate to help protect kids. Other than that, please continue to share. Parents, be nosy. You got to protect these kids, and we got to stand up for them. Because you know what? After this life, we're going to be held accountable for what we did. Did we help keep kids safe, or did we turn a blind eye and pretend like everything was fine? And that it was all just some political agenda somewhere. No, this is really happening. And it's time to stand up and make a difference. So if you can help us out, we greatly appreciate that. To everybody listening out there, we thank you for being here. We thank you for your passion to protect kids. Again, Oakland Maid, Dominique, Eric, other people in the chat, we're glad that you're here. We're sad to hear about Bryden's channel. Going to find out what the heck happened with that. Hopefully he's appealing it. And in the meantime, you guys are welcome to come over here every Saturday, 8 p.m. for Saturday Night Protection Live. This has been Christopher Gelson, the host of Saturday Night Protection Live and Protect Your Children Incorporated. Until next week, stay safe. God bless.